You know that moment when you realize your entire life has been building up to something you never saw coming? I'm Jessi Swan, and this is the story of how my college graduation turned into the most unexpected day of my entire life. My sister thought she could steal my spotlight with a surprise engagement announcement. What she didn't know was that I had news that would change everything. Not just for me, but for our entire family. This isn't just about sibling rivalry or hurt feelings. This is about secrets, choices, and the moment when your carefully constructed world either crumbles or transforms into something you never imagined possible.
Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you.
The morning of May 15th started like any other graduation day in Portland, Oregon. I woke up at 6 in the morning to my phone buzzing with congratulatory messages, my stomach already twisted in knots. Not from nervousness about walking across that stage at Reed College. I'd worked 4 years for this moment, maintaining a near-perfect GPA while juggling 2 part-time jobs. No, the knot in my stomach had everything to do with what I knew was coming, and what nobody else knew was about to happen. I lay there in my cramped studio apartment on Hawthorne Boulevard, staring at the water-stained ceiling, listening to the rain tap against my window. Portland in May. Always unpredictable, always wet. The irony wasn't lost on me. My life felt exactly like that weather. Uncertain, stormy, about to pour down on everyone I loved. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was my older sister, Vanessa. "Can't wait for today, Jess. So proud of you. See you at 10 a.m. sharp. Mom's already freaking out about parking. LOL. I stared at those words, at that casual lull, and felt something cold settle in my chest. Vanessa had always been the golden child, the one who did everything right, everything on time, everything according to the Swan family playbook. She'd graduated summa cum laude from University of Oregon 5 years ago, landed a corporate job at a tech startup in Seattle within weeks, and had been dating Connor Hayes, a software engineer from a wealthy Bellevue family for 3 years. Everyone loved Vanessa. Everyone trusted Vanessa. Vanessa never caused problems or made waves. I was the opposite, the artistic one, the free spirit, as my mother diplomatically called me, though I knew what she really meant, the disappointing one. I'd chosen Reed College specifically because it was unconventional, because it didn't give traditional grades, because it let me study creative writing and philosophy instead of something practical. My father, Richard Swan, a financial advisor in downtown Portland, had barely spoken to me the entire first year when I'd turned down a partial scholarship to Boston University to stay local and find myself. But today was supposed to be my day. Today, I was finally proving that my choices mattered, that I'd accomplished something real. I was graduating with distinction. I had a thesis on contemporary feminist literature that my professors actually praised, and I'd even been accepted into a prestigious MFA program at Columbia University in New York City. I hadn't told my family about Columbia yet. I was planning to announce it at the graduation brunch my parents had reserved at Clyde Haman, this trendy restaurant in the Ace Hotel that cost way more than they usually spent on anything related to me. I finally dragged myself out of bed and stood in front of my closet, pulling out the white dress I'd bought specifically for the post-ceremony brunch. It was simple, but elegant, from a vintage shop on Mississippi Avenue, fitted, knee-length, with delicate lace sleeves. I'd spent 2 weeks' worth of coffee shop tips on it, but it was worth it. I wanted to look like I had my life together when I made my announcement. I wanted my family to see me as an adult, as someone who'd made it. The graduation cap and gown hung on the back of my door, the emerald green and black of Reed College looking almost regal in the gray morning light. I ran my fingers over the tassel, letting myself feel a small moment of pride. 4 years, countless all-nighters in the library, waitressing shifts until 2 in the morning, then waking up for 8 a.m. seminars, professors who challenged me, who pushed me to think deeper, write better, question everything. It had been worth it. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was my best friend, Marcus Chen. "You ready for the big day, Swan? Don't trip on that stage. I'll be the one in the third row trying not to ugly cry." I smiled despite myself. Marcus had been my anchor through college, my study partner, my late-night conspiracy theorist, and my partner in crime at every terrible poetry reading and experimental theater production Portland had to offer. He was the only person who knew the whole truth about what I was dealing with, the only person I'd told about the secret I'd been carrying for the past 2 months. I texted him back, "If I trip, it'll be because I'm distracted by your ugly crying." I forced myself to eat something, just toast and coffee, my stomach too anxious for anything more substantial. As I sat at my tiny kitchen table, I pulled out the envelope I'd hidden in my desk drawer 2 weeks ago. Columbia University, School of the Arts. The acceptance letter I'd read so many times, I'd memorized every word. "Dear Miss Swan, it is with great pleasure that we offer you admission to the Master of Fine Arts program in Creative Writing at Columbia University. Full funding, a teaching assistantship, a stipend that would actually cover rent in New York City. It was everything I'd dreamed about since I was 16 years old, writing terrible poetry in my childhood bedroom in my parents' house in the Pearl District, imagining a life beyond Portland, beyond my family's expectations, beyond being Vanessa's little sister. But that wasn't the only secret I was carrying." I reached into my bag and pulled out the other envelope, this one smaller, more ominous. The return address read, Oregon Women's Health Center. Inside was a printout of test results, an appointment card, and a series of pamphlets I hadn't opened yet. The date on the appointment card was for next Tuesday, May 20th, 5 days from now. I was 8 weeks pregnant.
Nobody knew except Marcus and Dr. Patricia Levin at the health center. Not my parents, not Vanessa, and definitely not Tyler Brennan, the visiting poetry professor from San Francisco who'd been my thesis advisor, my mentor, and for 3 months last fall, my secret relationship that had ended the week before I found out I was pregnant. Tyler was 42. I was 22. He was technically still married, though he swore he was separated. He'd gone back to San Francisco in December for what was supposed to be a few weeks to sort things out with his wife. He never came back to Portland. He stopped returning my calls in January. By February, when I'd finally worked up the courage to take the test, he'd blocked my number entirely. So here I was, graduating college, accepted to my dream MFS program in New York, and pregnant with my married ex-professor's baby. The appointment on Tuesday was at a clinic that provided options counseling and abortion services. I'd made it 3 weeks ago, in a haze of panic and confusion. I still didn't know what I was going to do. The rain picked up outside, hammering harder against my window. I checked my phone, 7:30 a.m. I needed to be at Reed by 9 for the graduate lineup. My parents and Vanessa would meet me after the ceremony. I stood up, poured the rest of my coffee down the sink, and started getting ready. I applied makeup carefully, trying to hide the dark circles under my eyes from weeks of barely sleeping. I straightened my long brown hair until it fell smoothly down my back. I put on the white dress and stood in front of my full-length mirror. I looked like someone who had it figured out. I looked like someone who was about to step into a bright, promising future. I looked like a complete lie. My phone rang. It was my mother, Catherine Swan. "Jessi, honey, are you up? Your father's already worried about traffic, and Vanessa says there's construction on Woodstock Boulevard. We're leaving in 20 minutes. Are you ready?" "I'm ready, Mom." My voice steadier than I felt. "We're so proud of you, sweetheart. I know these 4 years haven't been easy, but you did it. You really did it." Something in her voice made my throat tighten. My mother had always been caught in the middle, between my father's disappointment in my choices and his obvious preference for Vanessa's conventional success. She'd tried to be supportive, but I could always sense her worry, her fear that I was wasting my potential, that I'd end up struggling and unhappy. "Thanks, Mom. I'll see you after the ceremony. We'll be the ones crying in the audience. Well, I'll be crying. Your father will be pretending he's not crying. You know how he is." I did know how he was. Richard Swan didn't do emotions. He did spreadsheets and retirement accounts and lectures about fiscal responsibility.
The day I'd told him I was majoring in creative writing, he'd actually laughed. Not a happy laugh, but a bitter, disbelieving one. And what exactly are you going to do with that, Jessi? Teach? Starve? Wait tables for the rest of your life? I'd been waiting tables for the rest of college, so I guess he'd been partially right. I hung up with my mother and took one last look around my studio apartment. This place had been my sanctuary for 2 years. Small, cramped, kind of shabby, but mine. I'd written my entire thesis here. I'd cried here over Tyler. I'd stared at positive pregnancy tests here at 3 in the morning, trying to figure out what the hell I was going to do with my life. If I went to Columbia in the fall, I'd have to leave all this behind. Portland, my family, everything familiar. If I kept the baby, I'd have to give up Columbia, give up New York, give up everything I'd worked toward. If I didn't keep the baby, I'd have to live with that choice for the rest of my life. I grabbed my cap and gown, my purse, and my keys. As I locked the door behind me and headed down the stairs to my beat-up Honda Civic, I made a decision. Today, at that brunch, I was going to tell them everything. About Columbia, about the pregnancy, about Tyler. I was going to lay it all out there and let the chips fall where they may. I was done hiding, done pretending, done being the disappointment who couldn't get her life together. Vanessa could make whatever announcement she wanted at my graduation. I had a feeling mine would be bigger. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story.
Reed College's campus looked beautiful despite the rain. The ceremony was being held in the sports center because of the weather, and by the time I arrived at 8:45, the parking lot was already packed with families unloading umbrellas and cameras. I found a spot near the back and sat in my car for a moment, watching graduates in green and black gowns hurrying toward the building. My phone buzzed. Marcus. "I'm saving you a spot in line. Get your butt in here, Swan." Marcus was the only reason I'd survived the last 2 months. He was pre-med, brilliant, and had absolutely no judgment about my situation. When I'd shown up at his apartment at midnight in March, sobbing and waving a positive pregnancy test, he'd made me tea, let me cry for 2 hours, and then helped me research every option available. He didn't push me toward any decision. He just listened. I grabbed my cap and gown and ran through the rain into the sports center. Inside, it was chaos. 300 graduates milling around, families everywhere, professors in their academic regalia looking distinguished and slightly overwhelmed. I found Marcus near the line forming for the processional. "You look terrified," he said, hugging me. "I am terrified. Of walking across the stage or of what comes after?" "Both. All of it. Everything." He squeezed my shoulder. "You're gonna be fine. You're Jessi Swan. You're tougher than you think." I wasn't sure I believed him, but I appreciated the sentiment. The processional music started. Pomp and circumstance, that cliché graduation march that somehow still made me emotional. We lined up alphabetically, and I found myself between Aisha Stevens and David Taylor, both philosophy majors I'd shared classes with for 4 years. We exchanged nervous smiles as we began walking into the main arena. The sports center had been transformed. Rows and rows of chairs faced a stage decorated with Reed College banners and flowers. The stands were packed with families, everyone's phones raised to capture the moment. I scanned the crowd as we walked in, looking for my parents and Vanessa. I spotted them in the middle section, about 15 rows back. My father in his navy suit, looking uncomfortable in the crowd. My mother in a pale blue dress, already dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. And Vanessa, stunning as always, in a coral dress that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe, her blonde hair perfectly styled, sitting next to Connor Hayes. Connor? I'd only met him a few times. He was tall, conventionally handsome, worked in software development, came from money. He seemed nice enough, if a little boring. But Vanessa loved him, and my parents adored him, especially my father, who loved talking to Connor about investments and real estate. As I took my seat with the other graduates, I caught Vanessa's eye. She waved enthusiastically, beaming at me. Connor waved too. My mother was definitely crying now. My father gave me a stiff nod that I'd learned over the years meant he was proud, but didn't know how to show it. The ceremony began. Our college president, Dr. Ellen Morrison, gave a speech about transformation and potential. The valedictorian, a biology major named James Park, who I'd worked with in the Writing Center, gave a surprisingly funny speech about failure and resilience. Faculty members gave awards. The whole thing felt both endless and too fast. Then came the moment I'd been working toward for 4 years.
Jessi Marie Swan, Bachelor of Arts in Creative Writing and Philosophy, graduating with distinction. I stood up and walked across that stage, my legs somehow steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. Dr. Morrison shook my hand and handed me my diploma cover. I heard my mother's voice above the applause. "That's my daughter!" I looked out at the crowd and found my family again. My mother was crying openly now. My father was clapping, and I swear I saw his eyes glistening. Vanessa was standing, cheering, looking genuinely happy for me. For one perfect moment, everything felt right. I'd done it. I'd graduated. I'd proved I could finish something, accomplish something real. Then I walked off the stage and back to my seat, and reality crashed back in. In a few hours, I'd be sitting in that restaurant, and everything would change. I'd tell them about Columbia and watch my father finally look proud. Then I'd tell them about the pregnancy and watch that pride evaporate. The rest of the ceremony passed in a blur. More names, more applause, more speeches. Finally, Dr. Morrison announced, "Graduates, you may move your tassels from right to left." We did, in unison, and the crowd erupted. Caps flew into the air, people hugged and cried and laughed. Marcus found me immediately and lifted me off the ground in a bear hug. "We did it! We actually graduated!" "We did," I said, but my voice sounded hollow even to my own ears. "Hey," Marcus pulled back and looked at me seriously. "Whatever happens today, whatever you decide to tell them, I've got your back. You know that, right?" "I know. Thank you." Families started flooding onto the floor, finding their graduates. I saw my mother pushing through the crowd, my father behind her, Vanessa and Connor trailing them. "Jessi!" My mother reached me first and pulled me into a tight hug. "I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. So proud." My father hugged me next, which was rare. "Good job, Jessi. Really." Vanessa hugged me and whispered in my ear, "You're amazing, little sister. I always knew you'd do great things." Connor shook my hand awkwardly. "Congratulations, Jessi. Big day." We took photos, so many photos. Me alone, me with my parents, me with Vanessa, the whole family together. Marcus photobombed several of them, making everyone laugh. "All right," my father said, finally checking his watch. "Our reservation at Clyde Common is at 1 o'clock. We should head over there now to beat the rush." My stomach dropped. This was it. In less than an hour, I'd be sitting at that table, making my announcements and watching everything unravel. As we walked toward the parking lot, Vanessa linked her arm through mine. "This is such a special day, Jess. I'm so happy to be here celebrating you." There was something in her voice, something I couldn't quite identify. Excitement? Nervousness? I glanced at her and noticed she kept looking at Connor, who was walking ahead with my father, deep in conversation about something tech-related. "Thanks for coming all the way from Seattle." "Are you kidding? I wouldn't miss this for the world. Besides," she paused, and that strange excitement crept back into her voice. "Today's important for a lot of reasons." I felt a cold prickle run down my spine. Something was coming. I didn't know what, but I could feel it. We reached the parking lot, made plans to meet at the restaurant, and headed to our separate cars. As I sat in my Honda watching the rain start up again, I pulled out my phone and stared at both envelopes in my bag. Columbia. The pregnancy. Tyler. Whatever Vanessa had planned, whatever she was excited about,
It couldn't possibly be bigger than what I was about to drop on this family. Could it? I started the car and headed toward downtown Portland, toward Clyde Common, toward the moment everything would change.
Clyde Common was exactly the kind of place my family would never normally go to. Industrial chic with exposed brick walls, Edison bulb lighting, and a menu where everything was locally sourced and cost twice what it should. My father had clearly wanted to make today special, which somehow made everything worse. The more effort they put into celebrating me, the harder it would be when I shattered their expectations. We arrived separately, meeting outside the Ace Hotel entrance where the restaurant was located. The rain had softened to a drizzle, and downtown Portland bustled with its usual Saturday afternoon energy. Street performers on corners, tourists with Powell's Books bags, the Max light railed lighting past on its tracks. My mother immediately started fussing with my hair, which had gotten messed up from pulling off my graduation cap. Let me just fix this before we go in. I want to get more pictures inside. Mom, it's fine. Indulge me, honey. It's not every day my youngest daughter graduates from college. Vanessa stood nearby, checking her phone with a strange smile playing at her lips. Connor kept glancing at her, then at me, then back at her. Something was definitely happening between them, some silent communication I couldn't decode. My father held the door open, and we filed into the restaurant. The host, a young guy with an impressive beard and tattoo sleeves, checked our reservation. Swan, party of 5, right this way. He led us through the busy dining room to a corner table by the windows overlooking Stark Street. It was actually a beautiful spot, private enough for conversation, but still part of the restaurant's vibrant energy. My father had done well. We settled into our seats. I ended up between my mother and Marcus, who'd been invited to join us. Vanessa and Connor sat across from me, and my father took the head of the table. "This is lovely, Richard," my mother said, squeezing his hand. "Really special." "Only the best for our graduate," my father replied, and he actually smiled at me. A real smile, not his usual tight-lipped expression of vague disapproval. I felt sick. The server appeared, a woman in her 30s named Rachel, according to her name tag. She ran through the specials, recommended wine pairings, and took our drink orders. My parents both ordered glasses of Pinot Noir. Vanessa asked for champagne, which earned a raised eyebrow from my mother. "Champagne? It's 1 in the afternoon, Money." "It's a celebration, Mom," Vanessa said, her voice bright with that same mysterious excitement. Connor ordered champagne too. I asked for water, which earned a look from my father. "Come on, Jessi, you're 22 years old, just graduated college. Have a glass of wine at least." "I'm good with water, Dad. I had a rough night last night. Lots of celebrating already." The lie came easily, but Marcus shot me a knowing look. After Rachel left with our orders, my father raised his water glass. "I want to make a toast before the alcohol arrives. To Jessi, who took the road less traveled, who proved us all wrong about following your passion, and who made it across that finish line with distinction. We're incredibly proud of you." Everyone raised their glasses. My mother was tearing up again. Vanessa beamed at me. Connor nodded approvingly. Marcus clinked his glass against mine and whispered, "You got this." I took a sip of water and tried to swallow past the lump in my throat. The drinks arrived and we ordered food. I chose the smoked salmon salad without really looking at the menu. My stomach was too twisted to eat anything heavy. As Rachel walked away, my mother launched into the conversation I'd been dreading. "So, Jessi, what's next? Have you thought about your plans? I know you've been applying to some positions. Any news?" This was my opening. This was the moment I'd been planning for weeks. I took a breath, felt the weight of the Columbia acceptance letter in my purse under the table, and opened my mouth to speak. "Actually, Mom, Wait!" Vanessa suddenly stood up, her champagne glass in hand, her face flushed with excitement. "Before we get into all that, Connor and I want to share something with everyone." The table went silent. My mother looked confused. My father set down his wine glass. Marcus tensed beside me. Connor stood up next to Vanessa, reaching for her hand. He looked nervous but happy, and suddenly I knew exactly what was about to happen. "Mr. and Mrs. Swan, Jessi," Connor began, his voice formal and slightly shaky, "we wanted to make today even more special by sharing our news with the whole family together." Vanessa held up her left hand, and I saw it. A diamond ring catching the afternoon light streaming through the window. Not a huge stone, but elegant, expensive, exactly what Vanessa would choose. We're engaged, Vanessa practically squealed. Connor proposed last night in Seattle, and we wanted to tell everyone in person. We wanted to celebrate both of these amazing milestones together, Jessi's graduation and our engagement. My mother gasped and immediately started crying. Happy tears this time. She jumped up and pulled Vanessa into a hug, then hugged Connor, then looked at the ring like it was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. Oh my God, I can't believe this. Richard, they're engaged! My father stood up, shaking Connor's hand firmly, pulling him into one of those masculine half hugs. Congratulations, son. You're getting a wonderful woman. Welcome to the family. Everyone was standing now, except me. I sat frozen, watching this scene unfold like I was outside my body. Vanessa was glowing, accepting congratulations, holding out her hand for my mother to examine the ring. Connor was grinning, relieved that the announcement had gone well. This was my graduation brunch. My celebration. My moment. And Vanessa had just made it about her. Marcus leaned over and whispered, "Are you okay?" I nodded, not trusting my voice. I stood up mechanically and walked around the table to hug Vanessa. "Congratulations," I managed to say. "I'm happy for you." Vanessa hugged me tight. "Thank you, Jess. I know today's your day, but we just couldn't wait to tell everyone. You don't mind sharing the spotlight, do you? I mean, this way, it's double the celebration." She said it so brightly, so innocently, like she genuinely believed she was adding to my special day rather than hijacking it. Maybe she did believe that. Vanessa had always been the center of attention in our family. It probably never occurred to her that announcing her engagement at my graduation brunch might be inappropriate. "Of course I don't mind," I lied.
My mother was already pulling out her phone, taking pictures of Vanessa's ring, asking about wedding plans. My father had ordered a bottle of champagne for the table. Expensive champagne, the kind he'd never ordered for my graduation alone. Connor caught my eye across the table. "Thanks for being cool about this, Jessi. Vanessa really wanted to share it with everyone today." "It's fine," I said automatically. We sat back down, and the conversation immediately shifted entirely to the engagement. When did Connor propose? How did he do it? Had they set a date? Where were they thinking for the venue? Had Vanessa called Connor's parents yet? My mother was in full wedding planning mode, throwing out ideas about venues in Seattle and Portland, talking about dress shopping, asking if Vanessa had thought about bridesmaids. "Of course Jessi will be my maid of honor," Vanessa said, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. "I can't imagine getting married without my little sister standing up there with me." Everyone smiled at this sweet sisterly moment. Marcus was the only one who saw my face, saw the way my jaw was clenched so tight it hurt. The food arrived, but I could barely taste it. The conversation continued to swirl around Vanessa's engagement. My father was discussing Connor's job prospects and their plan to buy a house in Bellevue. My mother was already looking at Pinterest boards on her phone for wedding inspiration. Nobody asked me about my plans anymore. Nobody asked what came next after graduation. The question my mother had started to ask me, the one Vanessa had interrupted, was completely forgotten. I pushed salmon around my plate and took small sips of water. Under the table, my hand rested on my purse where both envelopes sat. The Columbia acceptance that would have made my father proud, the clinic appointment that would have shattered everyone's image of me. Rachel came by to check on us. "How was everything? Can I get anyone anything else?" "Actually," my father said, "could we see the dessert menu? I think we need something celebratory. We're celebrating an engagement and a graduation today." But his voice emphasized engagement just slightly more than graduation. Or maybe I was imagining it. Maybe I was being oversensitive, petty, selfish. The dessert menus came. My mother and Vanessa debated between the chocolate torte and the lemon tart. Connor talked to my father about investment strategies. Marcus ate his burger in silence, occasionally glancing at me with concern. I excused myself to go to the bathroom. In the single-stall restroom with its vintage mirror and artisanal hand soap, I stared at my reflection. The girl looking back at me was supposed to be celebrating. She was supposed to be announcing her acceptance to Columbia, basking in her family's pride, planning her future in New York. Instead, she was pregnant, invisible, and watching her sister steal her thunder at her own graduation brunch. I pulled out my phone and stared at Tyler's blocked number. For a wild moment, I considered unblocking him, calling him, screaming at him for putting me in this position. But what would that accomplish? He didn't want me. He had made that clear. A text from Marcus appeared. "You want to get out of here?" I texted back, "I can't just leave." "Why not? This brunch is clearly not about you anymore." He was right, but leaving would cause a scene, raise questions, make things worse. I washed my hands, fixed my hair, and walked back out to the table. Dessert had arrived. They'd ordered one of everything to share. Vanessa was showing my mother pictures on her phone of wedding dresses she'd been secretly looking at for months. Months! She'd been planning this for months, which meant she'd known Connor was going to propose soon. She'd known it would be around the time of my graduation. And she decided to announce it today. Anyway, I sat back down and picked out a bite of chocolate torte. It tasted like nothing. "So, Jessi," Connor said, clearly trying to include me in the conversation, "your mom mentioned you were applying to some programs. What are you thinking for next steps?" Everyone turned to look at me. This was it. This was my chance to announce Columbia, to reclaim even a tiny piece of this day. I opened my mouth. The words were right there. I got into Columbia, full funding, MFA program, New York City. But looking at my family's faces, my mother still glowing about wedding plans, my father checking his phone now that the engagement excitement had settled, Vanessa radiating happiness, I couldn't do it. If I announced Columbia now, it would look like I was competing with Vanessa. It would look petty. And my father would probably say something about how I should focus on getting a real job before running off to more school. I said I'm still figuring it out, nothing definite yet. I pushed salmon around my plate and took small sips of water. Under the table, my hand rested on my purse where both envelopes sat. The Columbia acceptance that would have made my father proud, the clinic appointment that would have shattered everyone's image of me. The brunch wrapped up soon after. My father paid the check, probably twice what he'd planned to spend thanks to the champagne. We took more pictures outside the restaurant, but this time they were mostly of Vanessa and Connor, with the rest of us arranged around them like supporting cast members. As we said our goodbyes on the sidewalk, Vanessa hugged me again. "Thanks for being so sweet about sharing today, Jess. I love you so much." "Love you too," and I meant it. Even through the hurt and anger and disappointment, I loved my sister. I just wish she'd thought about me for 1 second before announcing her engagement at my graduation brunch. Marcus and I walked to my car in silence. When we were finally alone, he turned to me. "Why didn't you tell them about Columbia?" The moment was gone. You could have created a new moment. It would have looked like I was trying to compete with Vanessa. So what? Jessi, that was your day, your graduation, your celebration. I unlocked my car and sat in the driver's seat, suddenly exhausted. I don't know, Marcus. I honestly don't know.
I spent the rest of Saturday afternoon driving around Portland with no destination in mind. Marcus had offered to come with me, but I needed to be alone. Alone with my thoughts, my anger, my confusion about everything that had just happened. The rain had stopped, leaving the city washed, clean, and gleaming. I drove past Powell's Books, where I'd spent countless hours browsing the aisles and avoiding homework, past the coffee shop on Belmont, where I'd written half my thesis, past Reed College, where graduates were still taking photos with their families on the front lawn, everyone smiling and celebrating. My phone kept buzzing with texts, my mother sending photos from the brunch with captions like, "Best day ever," and "2 reasons to celebrate." My Aunt Jennifer, who'd apparently already heard the news, congratulating both me and Vanessa in the same message, though she spent 3 paragraphs gushing about the engagement and 1 sentence on my graduation. Vanessa texted too. "Love you, little sis. So glad we could celebrate together today." I turned my phone face down on the passenger seat and kept driving. By 5 o'clock, I found myself parked outside Laurelhurst Park, watching families with dogs and couples walking hand in hand. The sun was trying to break through the clouds, casting strange shadows across the grass. I sat there for almost an hour, trying to figure out what I was supposed to do next. The truth was, I'd built up this whole scenario in my head. I was going to announce Columbia, everyone would be proud, and then, maybe after the initial excitement died down, I'd find a way to tell them about the pregnancy. Maybe I'd tell my mother first, privately. Maybe she'd help me figure out what to do. Maybe she'd come with me to the appointment on Tuesday and hold my hand while I made the hardest decision of my life. But now, after being completely overshadowed at my own graduation, after watching my accomplishment become background noise to Vanessa's engagement, I felt more alone than ever. My phone rang. It was my father. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Hey, Dad." "Jessi, hi. Your mother and I just got home. We wanted to call and tell you again how proud we are. Today was really special." Special. Right. Special because Vanessa got engaged. "Thanks, Dad. I know we didn't get to talk much about your plans at brunch. Everything got a little..." He paused, searching for the word. "Eventful. But I wanted to check in. Have you been putting out job applications? I have some connections at a few firms downtown if you're interested in administrative work while you figure things out." Administrative work. Of course. Because my creative writing degree was worthless and I needed a real job. "I've got some options I'm looking into," I said carefully. "Good, that's good. You know, Jessi, I'm glad you finished school. I'll be honest, there were times I wasn't sure you would, but you stuck with it, and that shows character. Now you just need to focus on building a stable career. No more of this artistic dreaming stuff. Time to be practical." Something inside me snapped. Is that what you think? That I've been wasting 4 years on artistic dreaming? I didn't say wasting. I just meant, you know what, Dad? I got accepted to Columbia University's MFA program, full funding, teaching assistantship, stipend. It's one of the best creative writing programs in the country, and they wanted me. Silence on the other end. Long, heavy silence. "An MFA?" he finally said. "More school? Jessi, you just graduated. You need to start earning money, building a career, not running off to more education that won't lead anywhere. It leads somewhere to me." "Where? To being an adjunct professor making $30,000 a year? To writing books nobody reads? Come on, Jessi, be realistic." "I am being realistic. I'm being realistic about what I want my life to look like, not what you want it to look like. Don't take that tone with me. I'm trying to help you. I've been supporting you for 4 years while you figured yourself out. At some point, you need to stand on your own 2 feet. Tears were streaming down my face now. "You supported Vanessa through grad school." That was different. She was getting an MBA, something useful, and she had a job lined up before she even finished. Because she does everything perfectly, right? Vanessa never disappoints you. This isn't about Vanessa. Yes, it is. It's always about Vanessa. Even today, my graduation turned into a celebration of Vanessa's engagement. And you know what? You will let it happen. You ordered champagne and forgot I was even there. That's not fair, Jessi. We were celebrating you both. No, Dad, you were celebrating her, like you always do, and I'm done trying to compete for your approval. I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. Immediately, it started ringing again, my father calling back. I declined the call. He called 3 more times. I declined them all. Then my mother called. "Jessi, your father just told me what happened. Honey, are you okay?" "No, Mom, I'm really not." "Come home. Let's talk about this in person." "Home? I haven't lived at home in 2 years."
You know what I mean. Come to the house. We can have tea and talk this through. The thing about my mother was that she genuinely meant well. She was the mediator, the peacekeeper, the one who tried to smooth over every conflict, but she was also my father's wife, and she'd always side with him in the end.
I don't want tea, Mom. I want someone in this family to care about what I accomplished today. I graduated with distinction. I got into Columbia. And nobody even asked me about it because they were too busy planning Vanessa's wedding. That's not true, sweetheart. We're very proud of you. It's just, Vanessa's engagement was such a surprise, and it wasn't a surprise, Mom. She's been looking at wedding dresses for months. She knew Connor was going to propose. She chose to announce it today. My mother was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer, sadder. You're right. That wasn't very considerate of her. But I think she genuinely thought she was adding to the celebration, not taking away from it. Then she's clueless about how things work in this family. Everything is always about Vanessa, her job, her boyfriend, her perfect life. I'm just the screw-up kid who chose the wrong major and disappointed Dad. Jessi, that's not... Yes, it is. And you know what else? I'm pregnant. The words came out before I could stop them. Just like that, sharp and blunt and final. I heard my mother's sharp intake of breath. What? I'm 8 weeks pregnant. The father was my thesis advisor. He's married. He went back to San Francisco and blocked my number. I have an appointment at a clinic on Tuesday to figure out what I'm doing. So congratulations, Mom. Your disappointment of a daughter managed to get knocked up by her professor right before graduating. Jessi. My mother's voice cracked. Oh, honey, why didn't you tell us? When would I have told you? At the brunch where Vanessa announced her engagement? Should I have stood up and said, "Hey, everyone! Fun fact, I'm pregnant and the father wants nothing to do with me." That would have really added to the celebration. Come to the house. Please, we need to talk about this. There's nothing to talk about. I'm handling it. You're not handling it alone. I'm your mother. Let me help you. But that was the problem. My mother would help, but then she'd tell my father, and he'd be even more disappointed than he already was. Vanessa would find out, and she'd probably try to be supportive while secretly feeling superior because she'd never make such a stupid mistake. Everyone would know, and I'd become the family scandal instead of the family success story. I need to go, Mom. Jessi, wait. I hung up and immediately turned off my phone. I couldn't deal with any more calls, any more texts, any more of my family trying to fix me or judge me or tell me what to do. I sat in my car in that park until the sun set, and the families went home, and the streetlights flickered on. Then I drove to the one place I knew I'd be welcome without questions or judgment. Marcus opened his apartment door before I even knocked. "I've been waiting for you," he said simply. "Come on in." His apartment was small and cluttered with pre-med textbooks and coffee mugs, but it felt safe. He made tea without asking if I wanted any, and we sat on his worn couch in comfortable silence for a long time. I told them about Columbia and the pregnancy, not together, two separate, horrible phone calls. But I told them. How do they take it? My father thinks Columbia is a waste of time. My mother is probably having a breakdown about the pregnancy. I don't know. I turned off my phone. Marcus nodded, not offering advice or platitudes. That was what I loved about him. He didn't try to fix things or tell me everything would be okay. He just sat with me in the mess. "What are you going to do?" he asked after a while. I have no idea. Every option feels wrong. If I go to Columbia, I'm choosing my career over a baby. If I keep the baby, I'm giving up my dreams. If I don't keep the baby, I have to live with that choice forever. There's no good answer. Maybe there's no wrong answer either. Maybe it's just a choice, and any choice you make will be the right one because it's what you decided. I wanted to believe that. I wanted to believe that I could make this decision and it would all work out somehow. But I couldn't see past Tuesday, past that appointment, past the moment when I'd have to choose what happened next. Can I stay here tonight? I don't want to be alone. Of course. You can have the bed.
I'll take the couch. We can share the bed. You're my best friend, not some random guy. As he smiled, fair enough. We stayed up late watching bad reality TV and eating leftover pizza Marcus had in his fridge. We didn't talk about my family or the baby or Columbia. We just existed together. Two college graduates with uncertain futures, trying to make it through one more day. When we finally went to bed around midnight, I checked my phone one last time before turning it off again. 47 missed calls, dozens of texts. My mother had even texted Marcus asking if I was okay. I wasn't okay. But I was here and I was breathing and I was making it through. That would have to be enough for now. As I fell asleep in Marcus's guest bedroom, I thought about Tuesday, about that appointment, about the choice I'd have to make that would change everything, no matter which direction I went. But for tonight, I could just sleep. Tomorrow would come soon enough.
Sunday morning arrived with gray skies and the sound of Marcus making coffee in his tiny kitchen. I woke up disoriented, forgetting for a moment where I was, why I wasn't in my own apartment. Then everything from yesterday came flooding back. The graduation, Vanessa's engagement, the phone calls, the secrets I'd finally unleashed. I checked my phone. 63 notifications. I scrolled through them with a kind of detached curiosity, like I was reading about someone else's life imploding. My mother had texted 15 times between midnight and 7 a.m., each message more desperate than the last. Please call me. I'm worried sick. Your father and I need to talk to you. I can't sleep not knowing if you're okay. My father had sent exactly 3 texts, all businesslike. We need to discuss your situation. Call me when you're ready to have a mature conversation. Your mother is very upset. Of course my mother was upset. I dropped a bomb on her and then disappeared. But it was Vanessa's messages that surprised me. There were 8 of them, starting at 11 p.m. last night. Mom just told me everything. Jess, why didn't you tell me? I feel terrible about yesterday. I didn't know what you were dealing with. Can we talk, please? I'm driving down to Portland right now. I'll be there in the morning. I'm at Mom and Dad's. They said you're not here. Where are you? Marcus won't tell me where you are, but he says you're safe. Thank God. I'm going to wait at your apartment. I brought bagels and coffee. Real coffee, not decaf. Please come talk to me. I love you, Jessi. I'm so sorry. I showed the messages to Marcus, who'd appeared in the doorway with 2 mugs of coffee. She's been blowing up my phone, too, he said. She's persistent, I'll give her that. She drove down from Seattle in the middle of the night. Sounds like she feels guilty. She should feel guilty. She announced her engagement at my graduation brunch. Marcus sat down on the edge of the bed and handed me one of the mugs. Look, I'm not defending what she did. It was selfish and tone-deaf. But she's your sister, and she's trying. Maybe hear her out. I sipped the coffee. Too hot, too bitter. Perfect. You're annoyingly wise for someone who just graduated college. It's a gift. An hour later, I stood outside my apartment building on Hawthorne Boulevard, watching Vanessa's silver Audi parked in front. She sat in the driver's seat, her head leaning against the window, eyes closed. She looked exhausted. I knocked on her window and she jolted awake. When she saw me, her face crumpled with relief. She practically fell out of the car and pulled me into a hug so tight I could barely breathe. Thank God. I was so scared. Mom said you told her about everything and then you just disappeared. I needed space. I know. I'm sorry for showing up this way, but I couldn't just sit in Seattle knowing you were going through this alone. She pulled back and looked at me, her eyes red-rimmed. Can we go inside? I really need to talk to you. We climbed the stairs to my studio apartment. Vanessa had never been here before. She'd always suggested we meet at nicer places when she visited Portland. But now she walked in and looked around at my small, messy space with something like understanding. This is really you, she said softly. Books everywhere, that vintage typewriter in the corner, the fairy lights. It's perfect. It's tiny, and the heater barely works. It's yours. That makes it perfect.
We sat on my futon couch, the one I'd found on Craigslist for $50. Vanessa held the bag of bagels she'd brought, but neither of us reached for them. "I'm sorry," she said finally, "for yesterday, for announcing my engagement at your graduation brunch. It was selfish and stupid, and I didn't think about how it would make you feel." "Why did you do it?" The question came out quieter than I intended. You had to know it was my day. Vanessa looked down at her engagement ring, twisting it around her finger. "Honestly, I got caught up in my own excitement. Connor proposed Friday night, and I was so happy, and I just wanted to share it with everyone. I convinced myself that it would make the day even more special, like 2 celebrations instead of 1. But I see now that it just overshadowed your accomplishment." "It did. I know, and I'm really, truly sorry." She looked up at me with tears in her eyes. "But Jess, why didn't you tell me what you were dealing with? The pregnancy, Columbia, all of it. I'm your sister. I should have known." "When was I supposed to tell you? You're always busy in Seattle with your perfect job and your perfect boyfriend, fiancé now. You have your life figured out. I didn't want to burden you with my mess." "Your mess? Jessi, you got into Columbia. That's amazing. Why would you think that's a mess?" "Because I'm also pregnant with my married professor's baby. Kinda cancels out the achievement, don't you think?" Vanessa was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something I never expected. "When I was 23, I had an abortion." I stared at her. "What?"
During my first year of grad school, I was dating this guy, not Connor, someone before him. We were careful, but accidents happen. I was barely keeping my head above water with school and my internship, and I knew I couldn't handle a baby. So I made an appointment, and I went through with it. Mom and Dad know? God, no. They would have been devastated. The perfect daughter making such an imperfect choice. I couldn't tell them. She looked at me intently. I told Connor, though, early on, when we got serious. I needed him to know. And you know what he said? He said he was glad I'd made the choice that was right for me. I felt like the world had tilted slightly. Vanessa, perfect, put-together Vanessa, had been through this too? Why are you telling me this? Because I need you to know you're not alone. And whatever you decide, whether you go to Columbia and have the baby, or go to Columbia and don't, or stay in Portland, or whatever combination of choices you make, it doesn't make you a mess or a disappointment. It makes you human. Tears started falling before I could stop them. I don't know what to do, Ness. I have this appointment on Tuesday, and I'm supposed to make this huge decision, and I feel completely paralyzed. Vanessa moved closer and put her arm around me. What do you want? Not what Mom wants, not what Dad wants, not what's practical or responsible. What do you actually want? I want to go to Columbia. I've wanted it since I was 16 years old. New York, the MFA program, the chance to actually be a writer, it's everything I've dreamed about. Okay, so that's one thing you know for sure. But what about the baby? That's a separate question. Do you want to be a mother right now? I thought about it. Really thought about it. No, not now. Maybe someday, but not at 22 when I'm about to start a graduate program 3,000 miles away from everyone I know. Vanessa nodded. Then you have your answer. It feels so selfish. It's not selfish to choose yourself, Jess. It's not selfish to prioritize your dreams and your future. You're allowed to do that. We sat there for a while, not talking, just existing together in a way we hadn't since we were kids. Before Vanessa went to college and became the successful one. Before I became the disappointment. Just 2 sisters dealing with complicated lives. Mom wants me to come home, to the house, to talk. Are you going to? I don't know. Dad's going to lecture me about throwing my life away. Probably, but Mom might surprise you. She's tougher than she looks. Vanessa squeezed my hand. And I'll come with you if you want. Moral support. I can run interference with Dad. You do that? Of course, you're my little sister. I'm supposed to have your back even when I'm being an idiot and stealing your thunder at graduation brunches. Despite everything, I laughed. You really were an idiot. I know, world-class idiocy. I'll make it up to you, I promise. Also, I want you to be my maid of honor, but only if you actually want to, not because you feel obligated. When's the wedding? We're thinking next summer, June or July, which means you'd be at Columbia by then. You could come back for it. You're assuming I'm going to Columbia. You are going to Columbia, Jess. Even if you have to make the hardest decision of your life this week, you're still going to New York. You're going to write amazing things and prove Dad wrong about everything. I know you will. Her confidence in me felt unearned, but also exactly what I needed to hear. My phone buzzed. My mother again. Jessi, please, just let me know you're okay. I showed the text to Vanessa. You should respond, she said gently. She's genuinely worried. I typed out a quick message. I'm okay. I'm with Vanessa. We'll come by the house later today. My mother's response came within seconds. Thank you. I love you so much. Take your time. Vanessa stood up and stretched. Come on, let's eat these bagels before they get stale, and then we'll face the parental firing squad. But first, you need to take a shower. No offense, but you look like you slept in your clothes. I did sleep in my clothes. Exactly my point. As I showered and changed into fresh clothes, I could hear Vanessa on the phone in my living room, her voice firm. No, Dad, you're not going to lecture her the second she walks in the door. You're going to listen. Actually listen, not just wait for your turn to talk, because I said so. I don't care if you think I'm being disrespectful. This is important. I smiled despite myself. Maybe having Vanessa in my corner wasn't such a bad thing after all. When I came out of the bathroom, she was off the phone and holding up 2 bagels. Everything or plain? Everything. Good choice. Now let's fuel up. We've got a family confrontation to survive. And for the first time since graduation day, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I could actually get through this.
The drive to my parents' house in the Pearl District felt longer than usual, even though it was only 15 minutes from my apartment. Vanessa drove while I sat in the passenger seat, watching the familiar streets of Portland pass by. We'd grown up in this city, played in these parks, walked these sidewalks. Everything looked the same, but I felt fundamentally different. You ready for this? Vanessa asked as she pulled onto my parents' street, a quiet tree-lined row of beautifully maintained townhouses that screamed upper middle-class respectability. Absolutely not. Good. Honesty is important. She parked in front of the house, a 3-story brick building with window boxes full of flowers my mother obsessively maintained. Remember, I've got your back. If Dad starts in on you, I'll redirect. He's going to be so disappointed. He's always disappointed about something. That's kind of his default setting. Vanessa turned off the engine and looked at me seriously. But here's the thing. His disappointment is his problem, not yours. You get to make your own choices. Easy for her to say. She'd never been the disappointing child. We walked up the front steps together, and before we could knock, the door flew open. My mother stood there, still in her bathrobe even though it was almost noon, her eyes swollen from crying. She pulled me into her arms without a word. "I'm so glad you're safe," she whispered. "I barely slept. I kept thinking about what you told me, about what you must be going through." "I'm sorry I disappeared, Mom." "No, I'm sorry. I should have noticed something was wrong. I should have paid more attention." She pulled back and looked at both of us. "Come in. Your father's in the living room." The house smelled like coffee and the lavender sachets my mother placed in every room. Everything was exactly as I remembered. The family photos on the walls, tracking Vanessa and me from childhood through college, the antique furniture my mother collected from estate sales, the bookshelf full of my father's finance textbooks and my mother's gardening guides. My father sat in his leather armchair, the one he always claimed for watching Sunday morning news shows. He looked older than I remembered, more tired. When he saw us, he stood up stiffly. "Jessi? Vanessa?" "Hi, Dad," I managed. An awkward silence filled the room. My mother gestured toward the couch. "Please sit. I'll make tea." "Mom, you don't need to..."
I started, but she was already heading to the kitchen, probably grateful for something to do with her hands. Vanessa and I sat on the couch. My father remained standing, his arms crossed, looking like he was preparing for a board meeting rather than a family conversation. "So, Columbia," he said finally. "Yes? You got accepted to a graduate program and didn't think to mention it?" "I was going to, at the brunch, but then other news took priority." I couldn't keep the edge out of my voice. Vanessa jumped in. "Dad, can we maybe not start with accusations? Jessie's been through a lot." "I'm not accusing anyone. I'm trying to understand why my daughter keeps major life decisions secret from her family." He looked at me directly. "Columbia is expensive, Jessi. Even with funding, living in New York isn't cheap. Have you thought about the financial reality?" "I have full funding, Dad. Tuition, stipend, teaching assistantship. I've thought about the financial reality more than you know." "And what about after? An MFA doesn't exactly open doors to high-paying careers." "Not everything is about money." "Easy to say when you're 22 and someone else has been paying your bills." "Richard," my mother's voice came from the doorway. She carried a tray with teapot and cups, her hands steady despite everything. "That's enough. This isn't about money or career prospects." "Isn't it? Our daughter is pregnant by a professor who apparently wants nothing to do with her. That seems pretty relevant to the conversation about running off to New York." The words hung in the air like smoke. My mother set down the tray with a sharp clink. "That's enough," she said. Her voice was steel. I'd never heard my mother use that tone with my father. "Sit down! Now!" To my surprise, he did. My mother poured tea for everyone with deliberate care, then sat down next to me on the couch. She took my hand. "Jessi, I want you to know something. When you told me yesterday about the pregnancy, my first reaction was worry. Not disappointment, not anger. Worry for you, for what you're going through, for the choice you have to make. That's still what I feel." "Mom, let me finish. I know your father and I haven't always been supportive of your choices. We pushed you toward practical paths when you wanted creative ones. We didn't understand why Reed was so important to you. We compared you to Vanessa when we should have celebrated you for who you are." Her voice cracked. "I'm sorry for that. I'm so sorry." I felt tears starting. "You don't need to apologize." "Yes, I do. Because you were going through something huge, something scary and isolating, and you felt like you couldn't tell us. What does that say about the kind of parents we've been?"
My father shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "Catherine, we did our best. Our best wasn't good enough if our daughter didn't feel safe coming to us when she needed help." She turned back to me. "Tell me about the appointment on Tuesday. What are you considering?" I took a shaky breath. "It's at a clinic that does options counseling. They'll go over everything, keeping the baby, adoption, termination, help me figure out what's right for me." "What do you think is right for you?" she asked gently. "I want to go to Columbia. I've wanted it forever. And I don't think I can be a mother right now. Not at 22, not alone, not when I'm about to move across the country to start a program that will consume all my time and energy." My father made a noise, not quite disapproval, but close. My mother shot him a look that could freeze fire. "There's nothing to discuss, Richard. This is Jessi's choice. Her body, her future, her decision. We can support her or we can make this harder, but we cannot make this choice for her." I stared at my mother, this woman who'd spent my entire childhood mediating, peacekeeping, smoothing over conflicts. She was drawing a line in the sand. Vanessa squeezed my other hand. "For what it's worth, I think you should go to Columbia too. You've earned this, Jess. Don't let anyone make you feel like you haven't." My father finally spoke, his voice quieter. "I just don't want you to make a mistake you'll regret." "What mistake? Going to Columbia or not having this baby?" He was quiet for a long moment.
I don't know. Maybe neither. Maybe I'm the one making mistakes here. It was the closest thing to an admission I'd ever heard from him. Dad, I know you wanted me to be more like Vanessa. Stable career, practical choices, everything figured out. But I'm not her. I'm never going to be her, and I need you to be okay with that. I don't want you to be Vanessa, he said, and he actually sounded sincere. I want you to be safe, secure, not struggling. I know, but struggling is part of being an artist, being a writer. It's part of the path I chose. And maybe I'll struggle for years, or maybe I'll make it work. But either way, it has to be my choice. He nodded slowly, like he was processing something difficult. The professor, Tyler, was it? We don't need to talk about him. I think we do. What he did, getting involved with a student, especially one he was advising, that's an abuse of power. You know that, right? I hadn't expected this angle from my father. I know. I didn't see it that way at the time, but I do now. If you want to report him to Reed, I'll support you. I'll pay for a lawyer if you need one. The offer surprised me. I don't want to report him. I just want to move on. That's your choice, but the option is there if you change your mind. He stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the quiet street. I may not understand your career choices, Jessi. I may think an MFA is impractical, but I'm not going to let some 40-year-old predator get away with taking advantage of my daughter. Predator? I'd never thought of Tyler that way, but hearing my father say it made something click into place. Tyler had been in a position of power. He pursued me. He kept our relationship secret, then abandoned me the moment it became inconvenient. My father turned back to face me. Go to Columbia, write your books. Prove me wrong about everything. I'd actually like that, being proven wrong by you. It wasn't exactly an apology, but it was something, maybe the most I'd ever get from Richard Swan. My mother stood up and hugged me. What do you need from us right now? Can you come with me on Tuesday to the appointment? Of course. I'll take the day off work. We'll go together. Both of you? I looked at my father. He hesitated, then nodded. If you want me there, I'll be there. Vanessa cleared her throat. I'm coming too. Full family support. We'll form a protective wall around you if we need to. For the first time in days, I felt something like relief. Not happiness, the situation was still too complicated for happiness, but relief that I wasn't alone anymore, that my family, dysfunctional as we were, was actually showing up for me. We spent the rest of the afternoon in the living room, talking through logistics. My mother wanted to know about Columbia's housing options. Vanessa asked about the MFA curriculum. My father, in his typical fashion, started making a spreadsheet of estimated expenses and how their support could help supplement my stipend. It wasn't perfect. We didn't solve everything, but it was real and honest in a way our family conversations had never been before. As evening approached, Vanessa and I prepared to leave. At the door, my mother hugged me again. Tuesday morning, 9 a.m. I'll pick you up from your apartment. Thanks, Mom. No thanks necessary. I'm your mother. This is what mothers do. In the car, Vanessa smiled at me. That went better than expected. Way better. I thought Dad was going to disown me. Dad's all bark. He just needs time to process things. By next week, he'll probably be bragging to his coworkers that his daughter got into Columbia. You think? I know. Trust me, I've been the golden child my whole life. I recognize when he's secretly proud but too stubborn to admit it. As we drove back toward my apartment, I realized something had shifted. Not just with my family, but inside myself. I'd been carrying these secrets like weights, convinced they made me a failure. But saying them out loud, facing the consequences, letting people in, it didn't make me weaker. It made me ready for whatever came next.
Tuesday morning arrived with clear skies, a rarity for Portland in May. I woke up in my apartment feeling strangely calm. After days of anxiety and chaos, I'd reached a point of clarity. I knew what I needed to do, and for the first time, I felt confident in my choice. My mother arrived at 8:30, earlier than planned. She brought coffee and muffins from my favorite bakery on Division Street. "Thought you might need some fuel," she said, handing me the bag. "Thanks, Mom." She looked around my apartment, taking in details she'd missed during her few grief visits over the years. "You know, this place really is you. I'm sorry I never took the time to see it properly before." "It's okay." "No, it's not. I got so caught up in worrying about whether you were making the right choices that I forgot to appreciate the choices you were making." She sat down on my futon. "Are you ready for today?" "I am. Actually, I need to tell you something before we go." She tensed slightly. "Okay. I've been thinking a lot since Sunday. About everything. Columbia, the baby, what I want my life to look like. And I've made a decision." "I'm listening." "I'm going to Columbia. I'm accepting the offer. I'm moving to New York in August." I took a breath. "And I'm not going to keep the pregnancy. I have an appointment scheduled for next week to terminate. I know that might be hard for you to hear, but it's what I need to do for myself." My mother was quiet for a moment, processing. Then she reached over and took my hand. "Thank you for telling me, and thank you for trusting yourself enough to make this choice. You're not disappointed?" "Jessi, my only disappointment would be if you made a choice based on what you thought I wanted instead of what you actually wanted. This is your life. You get to decide how to live it." The relief was overwhelming. "I love you, Mom." "I love you too, sweetheart. So much." She glanced at her watch. "Speaking of appointments, I should tell you I actually canceled the clinic appointment." My heart stopped. "What? Why?" "Because I called them yesterday and explained that you'd made your decision and just needed to schedule the actual procedure, not the counseling session. They were very understanding and helped me book you directly for next Monday instead. I hope that was okay. I should have asked first, but I wanted to save you from having to sit through a counseling session when you'd already done all the hard work of deciding." I stared at my mother. This woman who'd spent years deferring to my father, playing peacekeeper, avoiding conflict. She'd taken charge, made calls, advocated for me. "Mom, that's perfect. Thank you." "So, what do you want to do with this beautiful Tuesday morning, since we suddenly have the day free?" I smiled. "Actually, I have an idea, but I need to make a call first." 20 minutes later, we were driving toward Reed College. I'd called the registrar's office and confirmed what I'd suspected. There was a ceremony today where distinguished graduates received special recognition and awards. I'd been invited, but hadn't planned to attend because of the clinic appointment. Now, I was going to walk into that ceremony and publicly accept the writing award I'd earned. But first, I had one more stop to make. We pulled up in front of my parents' house. My father's car was in the driveway. I'd texted him to make sure he'd be home. "Why are we here?" my mother asked. "Because I need to do something I should have done on Saturday." My father answered the door in casual clothes, khakis and a polo shirt, his version of relaxed. He looked surprised to see us. "Jessi? Catherine? I thought the appointment was this morning." "Change of plans," I said. "Can we come in? This will only take a minute." We stood in the foyer, and I pulled the Columbia acceptance letter from my purse. I'd been carrying it around for weeks, waiting for the right moment. This was it. "Dad, I need you to actually read this." I handed him the letter. He unfolded it carefully and read in silence. I watched his face as his eyes moved across the lines, the congratulations, the full funding details, the teaching assistantship, and the praise for my writing sample. When he looked up, his eyes were wet. "Jessi, they're offering you everything. Full tuition, living stipend, teaching position. Do you know how competitive these programs are?" "I do." "And they specifically mention your thesis. They called it exceptional and groundbreaking. Your work on feminist literature, they're genuinely impressed." "I know, Dad." He looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. "I was wrong. About your major, about your choices, about all of it. You didn't waste 4 years. You built something real."
I tried to tell you that at graduation, but I was too stubborn to listen, and then your sister announced her engagement, and your accomplishment got buried. I'm sorry, Jessi. I'm sorry for not supporting you, for comparing you to Vanessa, for making you feel like your dreams didn't matter. Dad, let me finish. I've spent this whole week thinking about what you said, about always being the disappointment, about struggling for my approval. You were right. I did favor Vanessa because her path made sense to me. But you know what? Her path isn't better. It's just different. And your path? Your path takes courage I never had. I felt tears streaming down my face. You really mean that? I do. And I want to support you properly this time. Not just financially, but emotionally. I want to hear about your writing, your classes, your life in New York. I want to actually be your father, not just your critic. My mother was crying too. Richard, that's beautiful.
It's overdue. He pulled me into a hug. A real one, not the stiff, obligatory hugs from my childhood. I'm proud of you, Jessi. I should have said that on Saturday, and I'm saying it now. I'm so damn proud of you. We stood there in the foyer, the three of us, having the moment we should have had at graduation. Better late than never. So what's the plan for today? My father asked, wiping his eyes. There's a ceremony at Reed in an hour. I'm receiving a writing award. I want you both there. We wouldn't miss it, my mother said immediately. Actually, my father said, pulling out his phone, give me 5 minutes to make a call. 30 minutes later, we arrived at Reed College as a complete family. My father had called Vanessa, who jumped in her car and driven down from Seattle at speeds that probably violated several traffic laws. She arrived just as the ceremony was starting, Connor in tow. I wouldn't miss this, she whispered, hugging me. Not for anything. This time, it's all about you. The ceremony was smaller than graduation, maybe 75 people in the Elliott Hall Chapel. I sat with other award recipients while my family found seats in the third row. I could see them. My mother beaming, my father looking genuinely interested, Vanessa giving me an encouraging thumbs up, even Connor paying attention. When they called my name for the Distinguished Thesis Award in Creative Writing, I walked to the podium with my head high. The dean shook my hand and gave me a certificate and a small plaque. Jessi Swan's thesis, Reclaiming Narrative, Feminist Voices in Contemporary Literature, represents the best of what Reed College stands for: rigorous thinking, original analysis, and courage to challenge established perspectives. We're honored to recognize her achievement. The applause felt different than at graduation. This time, I wasn't lost in a crowd of 300 students. This time, people were specifically celebrating my work, my accomplishment, my voice. From my spot at the podium, I saw my father stand up and applaud, followed by my mother, then Vanessa and Connor. Soon other families were standing too, and I was receiving an actual standing ovation. I looked out at my family, imperfect, complicated, but finally showing up for me, and I felt something shift. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. Not the graduation itself, but this recognition, this validation, this proof that my choices had meaning. After the ceremony, we took photos on the lawn. Real photos this time, where I was the center of attention. Marcus showed up and photobombed several of them, making everyone laugh. So, Vanessa said as we walked to the parking lot, when do you leave for New York? August 15th, move-in day for graduate housing. We're helping you move, my mother announced. All of us. We'll make a trip out of it. You don't have to.
We want to, my father interrupted. Let us do this. Let us be there for this next chapter. Over lunch at a restaurant in Selwood, my choice this time, not my father's, we talked about New York, about the MFA program, about my future. Vanessa shared advice about adjusting to a new city. My mother worried about cold winters. My father started making lists of things I'd need for my apartment. At one point, Vanessa leaned over and whispered, "How are you feeling about everything?" Good. Really good, actually. I'm sad about what could have been, but I'm also excited about what will be. Does that make sense? perfect sense. You're allowed to feel multiple things at once. That's what makes us human. As we finished lunch and prepared to part ways, my father pulled me aside. Jessi, I want you to know something. What you're doing, going to Columbia, pursuing your dreams, making hard choices about your life, that takes more strength than I've ever had. I played it safe my whole life, built a stable career, followed the rules, never took risks. You're braver than me. Dad, that's not true. It is, and I'm grateful that you're not like me. The world needs writers, artists, people who see things differently. I'm sorry it took me so long to understand that. We hugged again, and this time it felt natural. On the drive back to my apartment, I thought about Saturday versus Tuesday. On Saturday, I'd been invisible at my own graduation, overshadowed by Vanessa's engagement, carrying secrets that felt like they would destroy me. On Tuesday, I'd been seen, recognized, celebrated, supported. Vanessa had thought announcing her engagement at my graduation was the big surprise, but my bigger surprise wasn't dramatic or explosive. It was quiet and profound. I'd found my voice. I'd made my choice. I'd stood up for myself. And my family had finally started to see me, not as the disappointing daughter or the struggling artist or Vanessa's little sister, but as Jessi Swan, writer, graduate, future Columbia student, woman making her own path. That night, alone in my apartment, I looked at the Columbia acceptance letter one more time, then I pulled out my laptop and started writing. Not for class, not for a grade, but for myself. I wrote about a girl who graduated college with secrets and dreams, about a family that learned to see her, about choices that weren't easy but were right, about the moment when your life could either crumble or transform, and you chose transformation. I wrote until 3 a.m, and every word felt true. 3 months later, I stood in my new apartment in Morningside Heights, Manhattan. Boxes everywhere, the New York skyline visible from my window, Columbia University a 5-minute walk away. My family had helped me move in, all of them, even Connor. They'd stayed for the weekend, exploring the city, having dinner in my tiny neighborhood, making sure I was settled. Before they left, my father slipped an envelope into my hand. "What's this?" "Just a little something extra for emergencies or books or whatever you need. No strings attached." Inside was a check for $5,000. "Dad, I can't." "You can and you will. Consider it an investment in the future best-selling author Jessi Swan." After they left, I stood at my window watching the city lights and thinking about how far I'd come. From that rainy graduation morning in Portland to this moment in New York. From feeling invisible to feeling seen. From carrying secrets to living my truth. My phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa. "Kill it out there, little sis. The world needs your voice." Another from Marcus. "Knew you'd make it. Proud of you, Swan." And one from my mother. "Remember, you're never alone. We're always here." I smiled and put down my phone. Tomorrow, classes started. Tomorrow, my real journey began. But tonight, I just stood at my window and felt grateful for second chances, for family that grows with you, for the courage to choose yourself. Vanessa had announced her engagement at my graduation, but I'd announced something bigger. I was Jessi Swan, and I was just getting started. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.